Rise of the Ronin is confusing. When you first hear about it, you see it promises big. Then when you play it, you see that it fails to deliver on a lot of those promises. But then you see that the promises it does deliver on, it goes above and beyond. Had the game delivered on every facet, then we'd be looking at a game that rivals games like Cyberpunk in scope. It really feels like Team Ninja bit off more than they could chew, so they focus on what they were best at. What we have is a good game, but to know if it is or isn't for you, you'd need to know what it did and didn't do well. Feudal Japan. What's not to love? Oh, that's right. Bit of a chaotic time during this period. I have a preference for the Sengoku period, but hey, the Bakumatsu period works too. Japan has made contact with the West, and is in a bit of a predicament. Should they open their doors to the newcomers, or should they shoo them away like rodents? The country is in turmoil, as different factions fight to determine the future of the country as either an isolationist nation, or another member of the world. This is the story of Rise of the Ronin. A member of the ninja clan, known as the Veiled Edge, which trains you in pairs. Blade twins. Unfortunately, an accident befalls your other half, and not long after, your entire clan is wiped out. Now a masterless Ronin, you begin selling your services as a mercenary during this chaotic time, as you focus on the real goal of discovering the truth of the fate of your blade twin. I describe this story in this manner, as I think that's how you'll get the most enjoyment out of it. This was a real historical event, but while the game seems to make you think you'll have a hand in shaping Japan's history, this couldn't be further from the truth. You're just an observer to what is happening. It'll offer you what looks like branching paths and decisions that really aren't. I'll cover that later. The story will resonate more with those who have a love for history, as it doesn't paint a clear good and evil to the conflict, rather it explores both sides, why they fight, and the order of events that went down. Your journey is finding what happened to your blade twin, not your influence on Japan. The story is passable. It's not bad, it's just good enough to keep you occupied with the story, and let it ring more with those who actually love this era. While this game has some over-the-top elements, as a whole it feels like Japanese Assassin's Creed. That said, the more grounded history means less dramatic interpretations. Keep in mind, I said grounded, not realistic. You will still see some steampunk technology, such as the grappling hook, glider, and rocket boots. The decision to kill or spare doesn't really matter. Even if you choose to kill and they were not meant to die, somebody will save them. And if you choose to spare and they were supposed to die, somebody will kill them later. And by later, I don't mean in a future mission. Set a stopwatch, they'll die very soon. I can only think of one character whose fate can actually be changed. Otherwise, everyone's fate is locked in. While there are gameplay consequences like what rewards you get, the story consequences border on non-existent. Gameplay consequences are usually along the lines of what rewards you get, like what weapons or combat styles, or maybe unlocks a new mission down the road, but that's it. The game has two factions, Pro-Shogunate, which is in support of opening borders with the West, and Anti-Shogunate, which is against that. There are several moments in the story where you have to pick a side, but these don't usually amount to much. In one mission, I went Anti-Shogunate and was assigned the task of assassinating someone. Solid enough mission. I did have a second save that I was playing simultaneously, and my mind went wild. Oh, if I picked the Pro-Shogunate, maybe I must protect them instead. Maybe I'd have to fight characters that would show up in the assassination mission? How cool would that be? But no, it's the exact same mission. And I'm not exaggerating. If there was a difference in the mission, I'm not finding it. Even the guards who was protecting the guy I was also protecting were shooting at me. The closest to a different mission comes way down the line. I first picked Pro-Shogunate, and I was tasked with invading an inn, and the mission did toss at me various enemies, characters, and boss fights. During my second save, I went Anti-Shogunate. This time I actually did get a somewhat different mission, but it was still played out the same. Instead of invading the inn, during the cutscene, we realized the inn is being invaded, and then we entered the inn, through the exact same door, down the exact same path. That being said, we did get different boss fights as some of the invaders turned to bosses this time, and the bosses from my other save became my allies. Since the characters are on different sides, oftentimes they'll confront you about your allegiance. But this once again amounts to very little. I did a Pro-Shogunate mission, That made me clash blades with an anti-shogunate character. Later on, I would have to take a mission with the same character. As expected, he questions why I was working with the shogunate. On my OG save, I told him it's because of my own agenda, and he was understanding. But on my other save, I said it was because I had an alliance with the shogunate. To which he then says that there must be something more. Then I was only left with the other option to tell him I had my own agenda.
But are you sure you want to share that news with your enemies? That's not something I can overlook. But what does that matter in the end? It would be a waste to kill you now. We are not done with each other, I'm afraid.
In another instance, I romanced a shogunate doctor. Then later on, I took an anti-shogunate mission that involved me shooting up a hospital. At the end of that mission, that doctor stormed in to scold me for what I did. And then the mission ended. And nothing more came of it. I didn't lose relation points with her, she never confronted me again about it. Considering I also had just entered the romantic relation with her, you'd think she'd at least have words for me, but no. These types of non-decisions are everywhere. And even when the decisions are made for you, they are just as easily rolled back. Several times, I was sent on an assassination mission where the plot demanded I fail to assassinate the target. Something would then happen so that I no longer needed to kill them. Then not long after, I would end up doing a mission on their behalf. It's not an exaggeration to sum up this should-be awkward conversation as water under the bridge as long as you do this one favor for me. I'd have characters try to kill me, and after I defeat them, since they are supposed to live, they either run away, change their mind on killing me, they get injured and I walk past them without killing them, or the game gives two choices on how I'm going to explain I'm not going to kill them. Like I said, it's better to think of yourself as a mercenary taking work for pay and your own independent agenda rather than a participant in the conflict.
Once you have the following weapons, the rest is one small spark will start an inferno that engulfs the nation. It is in times of strife when we are most needed.
This takes place during a real time, with real people. The characters you meet are not just nobodies, but real people in history who influenced the decisions made. From Commodore Perry to Ryomo Sakamoto, these were all real people, and let me tell you, there are a lot of them. Their personalities are very muted though. You'll get more out of this if you have a love for Japanese history. That's not to say that they're all cardboard or mechanical. Sakamoto is definitely the more colorful, being the lax cowboy type. You have others like the soft-spoken Usugomu Dayu, the yandere Sanoshiba, or the level-headed Kusumoto. And Katsu definitely has style. Then you have other characters, Toguro Katsura and Genyui Kasuka might as well be one person. Like I said, these were real people, so if you have love for Japanese history, what I just said sounds like heresy. But if you don't know or don't care, then many of these characters will slip your mind. And given the sheer number you'll meet along the way, you're going to be struggling to remember them all. Some characters are more colorful than others, and you not only get to interact with them, but to talk to them about their stance on the changes made in Japan. But you won't get wholesome moments like Mass Effect with Morden seeing Scientist Solarian. There are romances in the game, but shippers won't be flocking to them like they would Shepard and Tali or Fem, Shep and Garrus.
But I'm not saying you should stop fighting. You've made your choice after all. Just think about how it makes me feel from time to time. All I can do is wait and hope you'll come back to me. So, if you don't come back, I'll kill you myself. Got it?
What is your opinion on the current political climate? How did you get your profession? And you can get them gifts!
That came out of
The cinematography is also significantly less dramatic. Unless it's a full-blown cutscene, characters mostly just gesture and make faces while they talk. And this certainly stands out when you come across an NPC who is threatening you, or is supposed to be angry, and he's just in the exact same idle pose as before. As is common with Japanese games, There is a relationship system. Not only can you talk to them, but you can inundate them with gifts. Not only does this improve your relationship with them, but you gain rewards for the action as well. New weapons, new abilities. If you play other Japanese games, you know the formula. But for those who don't know, you talk to the character and your relationship goes up. The higher it is, the more gameplay you unlock. You can also raise it by getting them gifts, though these are just currency to unlock more relation meter. While some items are worth more to specific people than others, in the end they hold little value. Getting one person 5 copies of Frankenstein will net you a hefty amount of relationship points.
Allow me to thank you.
While the story isn't awful, I strongly doubt it's going to stay in one's head, the exception being for those who love the historical events. The story gives both sides of the conflict, so you understand their positions while not actually taking sides. If you love the era, you'll find this fascinating, as you'll get a better understanding of what exactly is going down and why. But if you don't care, then the story feels just hilariously bad. You know, I'm a big fan of open world games. Why? Exploration, beautiful landscapes, the feeling of a living, breathing world. From streets of Paris to the alleys of Night City to the landscapes of the land between to the ruins of Earth. And Rise of the Ronin has none of these. There is no way around it. The graphics look like something out of the PS3 era. Even some of the bugs harken me back to the early 2000s. Many times when galloping across the landscape, the term "poor man's Ghost of Tsushima" came to mind. The graphics are passable. Not beautiful, not ugly, just passable. But here's the thing, I personally think graphics are overrated. With the exception of a few games, I rarely ever pay attention to the graphics. Plus, game companies tend to prioritize games looking good over actually being good. Unfortunately, even the exploration is bare bones. In Automata, you had the city, the desert, the forest, the castle, the coast. These places all felt different. It even affected your traversal. Night City might mostly be city. Yeah, you had the wastelands, but it's mostly city. But even the city had different areas that felt different. If I compare it to another open world game like Vampire, a game that takes place in a real place at a real historical moment, and also had stiffly animated NPCs I could talk to. The different parts of London felt unique. West End was pristine with fancy buildings, and people are just as fancy. The docks are, well, the docks. Then you have the rundown Whitechapel. In Rise of the Ronin, you have forests and cities. Sure, there are some things to do in the world, finding cats, finding shrines, visiting historical locations, and taking bounties to hunt down fugitives. But outside of bounty hunting, the others are just sort of meh. The landscape is uninteresting to look at. The city feels like it's populated by robots, not people. While there are some well-made areas, they are only very specific locations, and are surrounded by wastelands of meh. Open world games need to scatter enemies that the player can interact with. The enemy presence in Rise of the Ronin is bare bones, and at times you'll get a citizens in trouble alert nearby. The problem being faced vary from monks asking for donations to travelers asking for an escort to muggers for you to fight. Though this could be a non-issue depending on how you view it. One in the world are constables, i.e. the cops that you can pick fights with. And there are other Ronin. These are just scans of the loadouts of other players who become NPCs. They're not actually other players, just scans of their equipment. Oh, okay, I know I just spent a lot of time trashing on the game. You might be confused. Didn't I call this game good? And to find out whether or not you like this game, I have to establish what this game isn't. Well, you see, though I love open world games and non-linear games with dialogue trees and branching decisions, you don't need those to be good. And Team Ninja's previous titles are just like that. I think it's better to view this as a game like Nioh and the like. In Nioh, you have an open map. You pick a mission from the map and then you go there. You complete the mission, you go back to the map. You might even take a mission on the same map. Rise of the Ronin feels just like that. It's just you can now freely move between mission points. Then there are the moment-to-moment gameplay. Even in the other title, Team Ninja really never excelled at their characters or map design. They excelled at combat, and you see it here. You might be wondering, okay, so if every character in the story was a real person, who are you playing as? And like any Assassin's Creed game, you don't exist. Sorry, there is no Altair or Ezio Auditore in history. Likewise, you are a nameless Ronin. No, your player tag doesn't count. Right at the beginning of the game, you can craft your own character. The customization is pretty good. While in many FromSoft titles, it's a struggle to make your character look human. You stay consistently human throughout Rise of the Ronin. I think a game like Code Vein has better facial customization, as there are some why moments. Why can't I replace this ponytail with a braid when I can do the same with a different hairstyle? Why can't I add bangs to this? That said, despite this, this is still really good, and I say one of the top character creations in gaming. Go online and see all the hilarious cosplays people have come up with. The loot is also pretty varied, and when you switch armor, you change your looks. But you can also overwrite this, give yourself a very specific fashion regardless of the armor you are actually wearing. And your fashion choices increase as you unlock more and more armor. Rise of the Ronin? More like Rise of the Ronin fashion. Might as well start a brand deal with this. Armor is era appropriate, but varied. You have kimonos, you have samurai armor, you have western wear like suits and western military uniforms. If you like playing dress up, don't be surprised if you spend a lot of time in this screen. And if you watch my Millennia guide or my Sekiro guides, you'll know exactly what I mean when I say that this is Sekiro style combat. Though Team Ninja has decided to put their own take on it. You attack until the enemy performs a counter spark parry, or spam punish, at which point you defend until you can create an opening and attack back. Instead of sword and prosthetics, you get 9 weapon types. Katana, dual katana, dao, udachi, glaive, spear, greatsword, saber, bayonet. All weapon types also come with their own combat styles. These dictate your attack strings and special moves. Every combat style has a total of 5 attack strings, with 4 unique ones. You'll always start out with 3, but you can unlock a fourth one. As you upgrade your combat style. And the 5th attack string is an attack string from another combat style of the same weapon type. For your defensive options, you have block, dodge, and counter spark. Dodge is straightforward. So is blocking, though it's still worth going over. Blocking an attack is very easy, but it will drain your stamina, or chi. This impacts your ability to attack back, and if you get your chi drained, you enter a stagger state, where you're open to counterattack. Counter spark is your parry that you can also serve as a type of offense, like the heavy attacks in For Honor. Not all, but some of the attacks that get parried will interrupt their chain. Not only that, but successful parries regain chi, so you can continue to be aggressive. This is primarily where the difficulty will come from. Your attacks drain stamina, your blocks drain stamina, your counter sparks drain stamina unless you successfully parry. Getting hit in the face also drains your stamina. If you nail those counter sparks, the combat flow is incredible. But if you don't, it's very common to mistime one parry, then get demolished. You already spend a lot of stamina attacking, then you lose even more. One from the mistimed counter spark, and one from getting hit by the attack you intended to spark, leaving you opened and staggered. During the enemy's turn, they can also perform these red unblockable attacks. You have to either dodge or counter spark them. Many of the rules on yourself also apply to them. If you can drain their chi and put them into a stagger state, you open them to critical hits. During your turn, you want to maximize your attack combo. Enemies sometimes block but rarely counterspark you. What you want to be on the lookout for is their spam punish. Unlike Sekiro where they only have a few spam punishes to remember, just about every move in Rise of the Ronin can be used as a spam punish. That's not to mean everything gets hyper armor, but you want to go in and bury them in attacks while keeping a careful eye for when they suddenly stop caring. You will know when it's your turn again, when your counterspark causes them to stagger. I've seen some people say the combat is poorly designed, that you can't do combos or you can only do 1 or 2 hits because of the counterattack, and that you have to be passive. Tell me, do I look passive to you? The gameplay can be overwhelming. It's Sekiro combat on speed. Everybody is faster and the window to realize the spam punish is smaller. The red attacks are well telegraphed, and they even come with a red flash to indicate when to hit the counterspark. But the flash is a point of reference, not a true indicator. For some attacks, you want to counterspark when you see the flash. For some, you'll want to wait for a period of time after. And for some, you'll want to do it before the flash. So there is a degree of memorization and trial and error. The game comes with not only a difficulty setting, but a dojo where you can practice your combat. There is a lot to unpack here when it comes to all the ways you can utilize the weapons, as well as your individual skill. Gank fights are very common, but the game also implements ways to make it fair. Enemies may congregate around you, but they usually don't attack at the same time, rather taking turns. Not only that, but your counter-spark is omnidirectional. So if you see someone coming up behind you, you can counter-spark their attack, even if you're busy with someone else. Not only that, but the counter-spark interrupts actions, so you can counter-spark at just about any time. There is a lot to unpack, and I haven't even touched upon the consumables, such as elemental buffs, or the ways you can use counter-spark offensively, or that you can extend your combo by switching stances mid-combo, or that you can extend your combo by switching weapons mid-combo, or that some stances have better or worse counter-sparks when used against certain weapon types, or that your secondary weapons like pistols, shurikens, and even a flamethrower, or that if you're getting ganked and your posture breaks someone, instead of going for a critical hit, you can use your grappling hook to pick them up and throw them, or you can use your hands to pick them up and throw them, or you can pick something up in the environment and throw it at them, or you get my point. You can also choose companions for the mission, then switch to them during combat. These companions have a limited preset styles, but it does open up more ways to fight. If you die, you take control of one of the companions, who can revive you, acting as additional lives. They also make good distractions of sorts. Their defense is pretty good, so what I often did against tough foes was aggro them, then take over a companion, and hit them in the back while they went after my AI-controlled character. Then when they aggro toward me again, I'd switch back, rinse and repeat. Their AI is rather stupid though, and this is mostly seen during stealth. I'd regularly lose my allies. Half the time it's because they got stuck, and the other half I didn't even bother looking for them. I mentioned this game is grounded, but I should say that this game is mostly grounded. You have some anime moves, you can block bullets, and there are a handful of characters with steampunk elements like a mechanical arm, or even rocket boots. You won't be fighting demons or casting spells and the like though. I nearly forgot to mention the stealth. It's rudimentary stealth system that gets the job done, but not much more. The coolest stealth is that you can use your grappling hook to snag people out of range if you have the upgrade. You can use your grappling hook and glider to navigate the environment for backstabs or air assassinations. But there's no wall cover, no hiding places like the cupboards or hay bales. You can't hide bodies either. Don't mistake the stealth to be bad. They're actually pretty good, but they aren't as deep as dedicated stealth games. Later in the game, you also unlock the ability to go back and replay old missions, including side missions. This is a feature I strongly believe open world games should have more often. And you could say this makes up for the lack of things to do in the world. I should also mention there are side missions where you're encouraged to be non-lethal. Several missions they seem to suggest they want me to go non-lethal. In these cases, you want to use your fists or wooden weapons to KO instead of KILL. But this is rather inconsistent. Some missions imply they want you to go non-lethal, but then it doesn't matter since your steel swords don't kill them anyways. Enemies will take a knee after their health gets depleted. But fortunately, the game is consistent in one thing. If they want you to be non-lethal and your steel swords can kill, they always begin the mission with a giant warning not to kill anyone. This game has scratched my Japanese Assassin's Creed itch. Hey, Ubisoft says I should be happy about not owning their games, so I've taken their advice to heart. So this is the Japanese Assassin's Creed I didn't think I'd ever get. And my introduction should make a lot more sense now. This game tried to be an expansive world with branching and meaningful decisions, and it fails at this. The world is boring, the decisions are non-existent. The social system isn't bad, just mundane. However, games don't have to have all those things to be good, and Rise of the Ronin proves just that, as it focuses on the moment-to-moment gameplay to great effect. As long as you can accept that this game isn't what I mentioned above, then what you have left is still a really fun game. If you don't know how I score my games, I recommend you look at my introductory guide. The overall game gets a 6. Like I said, refer to my introduction guide. This is a good game. It's just that it's overstepped its bounds in many areas. You'll like this game if you like moment-to-moment combat, especially Sekiro-like combat. It has a lot of depth. It should be noted that even though this game tried, it didn't capture the essence of things like open world and decision making. And if you are looking for those in the game, you won't find it here. Storytelling gets a yellow. It's an exploration of the era rather than a true story. You'll like it if you want a study of the time, see both sides in great effect. See both sides of the conflict. But if you don't really have a love for it or don't care, then you're going to find it dull. Gameplay gets a red. I feel this is a new take on Sekiro combat. Side notes. I've already said it several times, the Sekiro turn-based combat. Attack until they go for a spam punish, then you defend. You'll like this game if you want Japanese Assassin's Creed, or if you like historical games. The moment-to-moment combat gameplay is excellent. If you're after pretty graphics and open world or branching decisions, you'll be disappointed. Like I said, nowadays we're inundated with games that look good but play awful, and that's assuming they don't downgrade the graphics at launch. Rise of the Ronin goes hurling in the opposite direction. It's a shame that the vision wasn't fully realized, as it would rival games like Cyberpunk and Elden Ring. But still, beauty is skin deep, and Rise of the Ronin is beautiful.
On the inside.